Welcome to Game Set Matchup, the podcast where we talk everything partnerships, the good, the bad, and the ugly.
Hello, everyone. So I'm Carl Busby, your host of Game Set Matchup, the number one partnerships podcast, and we are back with our first episode of season 5, and it's a good one. So on today's episode, I caught up with Max Cleary, who heads up strategic partnerships at Unity within EMEA. So Unity has a set of software tools which allow software companies to utilize those tools within their own games or applications. Max is responsible for trying to grow these emerging products and ideally have, big gaming companies use these tools within their software. Something I have a very personal interest in myself, obviously being an avid gamer. It was really, really interesting to hear how the tools at Unity are being used, and more importantly, how he's trying to grow and form partnerships with this company. Max also has a wealth of experience in the partnership space, and we spent some time getting to know a bit more about him and also finding out about how his partnerships career has grown and where it all started with his own personal business. That's quite an interesting story, so you'll have to listen on to find out exactly what was involved. And then finally, we just spent some time discussing, how having the right culture in a business can, really make all the difference. And we also get to find out who he would love to partner with personally. And let's just say it's a unique and a good one. So as always, enjoy this week's episode. Hello, everyone, and welcome back to Game Set Matchup. So it's the podcast where we discuss all things partnership. So it's a pleasure to be back, our first episode, launching off season 5. And again, as always, you might be new to the partnerships game and looking for a bit of advice. Or maybe you're an experienced pro just looking for a bit of new inspiration or a bit more direction in terms of the partnerships world. Whichever one it is, we thank you all for tuning in. As always, I'm your host, Carl Busby, and very excited. Please welcome our guest today. We have Max Cleary, who is Strategic Partnerships over at Unity. Hello and welcome, Max.
Hi, Carl. Great to be here.
Thank you very much. So, as always, we'll dive into some of the questions, and we love to just start off, just to get to know a little bit more about who you are, so our listeners can understand a bit more about what you do. So, if you wouldn't mind, just give us a little bit of about your kind of your background, a bit about the current role, obviously that you're sort of currently doing, and just in terms of what you're sort of doing over at Unity.
Thanks. So, cheers, Carl. Great to be here. My role at the moment is at Unity, which is one of the world's largest gaming technology companies. I specialize in developing our emerging products team, which means taking advanced visual effects tools towards the gaming industry, as well as working with big gaming companies to help them with their production technology. So essentially, it's about helping companies do advanced R&D in the media production space. But I've been in the partnerships game for the last 13 or so years and have done quite a wide range of things over the course of that time. And I think I'd probably say that I've tried as best as possible to identify as not a salesperson, but ultimately having titles that are very much like a salesperson, as in partnerships lead, business development, commercial manager, skirting around the issue. But in one way or another, most of what I've been doing has worked for startups that have got a new or emerging product that is quite new to market, as opposed to selling something that's already commoditized and is high volume and those kinds of things. So my game is specializing in new products and services, finding product market fit and trying to find some of the first customers for new tech products. That's the kind of crux of what I've been doing for the last 14 or so years. Yep. Fun fact is that in earlier on in my career, I was a top 40 artist. So I had a small break of creating partnerships in that space and doing a bit more creative bits and pieces. I started a massage business. And the fun thing that I'm doing at the moment is a kind of crazy way of making new partnerships is I've made an AI generated film about my company, which is I started doing an AI and filmmaking course to be able to talk to visual effects companies more credibly about AI, which everyone's talking about in every industry at the moment. So I made an AI generated trailer about Unity, the world's biggest gaming company, where the partnerships team messes up a deal and there are dystopian consequences, and I've got a lot of my teammates' faces in it. So and I've found that actually sending that to prospective clients to show, A, I'm learning the game that you're in, B, this is quite fun, has been one of the weird and kooky things I guess I've done in recent times to create new partnerships.
Wow. Yeah, that's amazing. That's one of the most interesting intros I think we've ever sort of had on the Game Set Matchup. But it's really, really interesting. I mean, we might touch a bit more later on when it comes to the AI space as well. But just what you sort of touched on there about doing a course and doing that bit of research to try and work out more what's going on in the AI world before sort of reaching out. A lot of that does lend over into partnerships as well. We always recommend to our members that just do that research before you have that first meeting, find out what they're about. There's nothing worse than turning up to a meeting and then just they realize you don't know anything.
It's not just that. It's that you can easily parrot back what your product team, tech team, or analyst team are telling you, and you say, hey, there's some market research. But if you felt the pain that they felt, and in this example, hey, we found an environment's really tricky, right? And then you kind of got that same experience, means you can chat more credibly rather than just parroting things back that you've read or have took, So that's, I think, for me, the big change that I've made in the last few years, and I suspect many people in the partnerships game will be trying to make, is wanting to identify as more as a strategic advisor who's got that credibility, even if you're not at the same level as the people you're trying to sell to. Having that peer-to-peer exchange is really, really key.
Yeah. Well, we're going to touch a little bit more on that later, but just obviously keeping on the partnerships theme. So I'm not sure. So how long do you say you've been in the current role?
Been at Unity for 8 months.
Oh, 8 months. Okay, so relatively fresh. But obviously, again, lots of experience in previous things. So, but just like you said, this is the whole obviously gaming world. Something close to my heart. I'm a gamer myself. So we had a quick catch up before, so I kind of know a little bit about what's sort of going on, in that world as well. But with Unity, or even maybe like I said in previous sort of roles, how would you say, like I said, that Unity is going about looking to create partnerships in this in this sort of gaming space? And also, we always like to really sort of understand for you what would be, a gold star partnership, if there was such a thing, with a particular business or company.
So what I can share about what we're doing at Unity, because obviously can't go into too in depth.
Can't spill all the secrets.
All the secrets. The fun thing about the role that I'm doing at the moment is it's slightly different to a lot of other partnerships role that I've had, where we've actually got a very small number of companies that we're looking to work with. Because at the moment, the products are at a reasonably early stage. Mm-hmm. If we were to release them en masse to the gaming industry, and they're buggy or they don't all work, and there's a million customer service queries left, right, and center, we would not be able to support those products, and as a consequence, you'd end up with a backlash, and you'd end up with products that don't feel like they're fit for purpose. So we are looking to partner with a small number of the biggest gaming and VFX studios in the short term, and consequently, my role is much more about working with their R&D teams, with their production teams, as opposed to just trying to sell SaaS to a large kind of volume of the long tail mid to small size studios. So that's been a slight change for me, because typically in your business development role, so prior to Unity, I was at a emerging tech consultancy called Digital Catapult for 5 years, and that was much more broad range. We were selling AI consulting services, XR, AR, VR, blockchain, and 5G consulting. And at that point, you'd be looking to sell to any company that was of a certain size. And the real challenge was trying to identify the problem, because actually when you're selling advanced technology consulting services, you're not really selling a product at all. You're selling a problem that you need to identify from the customer. So actually the weapon that you have is questions. So instead of selling a product, you have to be incredibly creative. The questions that you ask and the strategy and the way in which you ask those questions is pretty much the entire game, because you can't easily turn up and say, or if you try and turn up and say, hey, we can do AI, hey, we can do this, and hey, we can do that. And the big systems integrators, which I'm sure all the big 4 consultancies, that is a big way that they would sell. But when you're a small fish, you really have to be incredibly sharp at asking the right balance of personal questions, strategic questions, all of those different ways in which you try and identify your personal motivations, and also do a load of research into what that company's doing, so it looks like you care about them. So in a way, that part of the game was more challenging. But what we're doing at Unity is also much more challenging, because you've got to get much more deep into the technology and much more into the long-term strategy of how these products may or may not evolve.
Yeah, no, that makes sense. I mean, you just touched on, and again, obviously, so, we're not going to spill the secrets, but like you said, obviously, the plan sort of to go out to sort of the bigger, sort of like gaming companies, and like you said, get, these guys to sort of take these things, on board. I guess the idea would be that, these things, the tools, they work. Obviously, they build up, obviously, a bit of a, I guess, sort of reputation. Then the rest of the companies go, oh, this looks cool. We want some of that as well, sort of thing, and it just naturally spreads. I'm guessing that's the general idea with the tools.
That's the broad idea, is that you productize these tools with the companies that are looking to really push the boundaries of what's possible when creating a digital human, or how can we create procedural environments so that you don't have to have many artists creating trees by hand and all of those sorts of things. But I guess what we look for, and the reason we're seeking those kinds of partners, is we need them to have an appetite for joint research and development. Because if there's a company who just wants to say, hey, we just want something that works and we need it to work left, right, and center, that isn't quite the right partner for us, because we need to have that joint goals, joint vision. I mean, their technology team to buy in and also work closely with our tech team first. So before you would sign a deal, you need to know that the technology teams are going to be reasonably well aligned, and as a consequence, we're looking to make sure that we are picking those partners on that basis, as opposed to just trying to strike a typical contract. No, that makes a lot of sense. And then just obviously keeping on the theme of partnerships, obviously here at Finder, we are all about helping businesses to get that first discovery call, and then cut through the the cold calling and the sort of awkwardness and stuff that can obviously come with obviously a lot of that. So with obviously like in the current role, in terms of like sort of how you sort of go about creating the partnerships. So I know obviously we had a catch up here, I think before, you said you'd been to like Gamescom, obviously that's massive event. Obviously the idea, I know you're obviously going to go there to try and build some relationships with people, connections, that kind of stuff. Is that like one of the main sort of ways that you kind of go out there looking for those people, or is there any other sort of tools or things that you guys are doing to basically look for for business? I would say that at Unity, the cold outreach lead generation component of the role that I have has not been the most challenging, because Unity is an established name. We're already connected to a lot of big gaming companies, and so as a consequence, can generally find a connection through somebody at Unity, which means you have to build relationships internally, and or events. Yes, I'd still say that the lifeblood of trying to get that first connection, you still use LinkedIn decent amount, you still go to events, you still try and create those chance connections. But I'd say that over the course of my career, the thing that I've stood out at and been able to do well is that cold outreach, whether that is events. Sometimes it's running private events like supper clubs, trying to create a community, or trying to run events to get people invested. I don't tend to subscribe to the thought leadership piece where you send out reports and things like that, because I think that tends to be a huge amount of investment for not, unless you're in a really, really specific niche and it's incredibly easy for you to crack that out. I find that building communities and getting peer-to-peer exchange of information in a small closed environment seems to be one of the best ways of getting customers not just in, but also invested in what you do. And that's one of the things that I quite like about the Finder principle is, hey, let's create a community. Maybe there's a subsection community around tech or health or insurance or whatever it is. And even if not everyone in the room is your decision maker, your CTO or your CEO, there'll be someone in there where if you could build a good enough relationship with them, you exchange peer-to-peer info, you think, oh, actually, this is quite fun and we've got a good back and forth, then that becomes something where you're willing to build that you can build network through each other. So I completely subscribe to that. And that was one of the most interesting and most more mentally demanding, but certainly most impactful ways that I've created partnerships. But over my when I was one of my first jobs out of university, I was selling recycling. I branded it as recycling consultancy services, but essentially I was selling bins door to door. And as a posh sounding guy going around trading estates, trying to interrupt people doing industrial metalwork or carpentry and shouting at them to try and look at their bins. That was kind of much more hardcore door knocking. And as a consequence, I think having done that piece, I don't have any shyness about reaching out. So I think it's key that everyone develops that. But I think the world that we're living in now, people are perhaps less responsive. I mean, on LinkedIn, if you do good messages, you're looking at 10% on a really good day. If you're quite personalized. So you've got to have that resilience.
Yeah. No, it's spot on. I mean, obviously, that's a interesting, funny story there. But like you said, that was helping build the foundations when you were young. And doing that thing. Me personally, it's not something I've been the best skill at when it comes to like cold call. I think it's one of those things. Ultimately, we have these conversations all the time. Everyone's in some way trying to obviously sell something as a business. That's the whole point. Partnerships can be a big piece of it as well, but you've got something that you are trying to obviously physically sort of sell. So building that skill from a young age, like I said, you're just gonna have that there sort of for when you obviously as you grow.
And on that, I think that there's a guy that I follow on LinkedIn, who I will find his name in a moment. He gave this story about how when he was 15, he was starting to cold call and started to reach out to businesses, and he was just like designing websites and that sort of stuff, but really, really early on. And he cracked at the age of 16 that if you're told no 9 times but told yes once, you're still 100% ahead of all of your peers. And actually, if you can get over the perceived shame, which at the age of 15, sure, like most people would have that. Shame, but that teenage insecurity still lives in all of us grown-ups. I don't want to be told no. I don't want to feel uncool. I don't want to feel rejected. 100%. And actually, if that's your muscle, that's like your hustle, that's the thing that differentiates you. 90 something percent of people will still feel embarrassed. That's not to say you should go and shamelessly bash down every door that you can. There's obviously a balance, but being able to do that is one of the things that separates people who are in the partnerships or salesy game that can be that have that ability to be proactive. So I'd say learning to do that early in the right way and choosing your battles is it's one of the most important skills in the entire game.
Yeah, no, I absolutely love that. That leads quite nicely on to the next question. So again, don't know, it might be something around this, but obviously you just touched on obviously what you did there when you first left university and stuff. But we always like to also, I guess, that your younger self, think back to when you were first sort of starting out, and sort of where you are sort of today. What sort of what advice would you maybe give? It might be like just could just be one little thing that just makes could made a bit of a difference to your sort of journey in terms of when you were sort of first starting out in this world.
I think that whilst obviously the hustle and learning to door knock and all that sort of stuff, I think it is really important. I think that the thing that would make the most difference and is going to be the most important for people in the partnerships game going forward is not just being good at partnerships. It's understanding your industry and really taking the time to, whether it's develop a technology skill or learning how to do design or whatever it is that your company specializes in, become friends with the people who are good at doing that job and try your hand at it. Because, for example, Unity, I've learned to use the Unity engine, the Unity editor. I work with some of the tech team, and that credibility not only means that I work more closely with people internally, but it means that if you ever were going to start your own thing, like become an entrepreneur and launch your own project, having the ability to play with the tools and not be scared of them and not feel like you're just an imposter in the technology game or whatever it is. Learning to play with new tools and pick them up quickly, learning to web scrape, this future world, learning to use AI tools to maximize your capability. Learning to pick up new skills and try them out, even if you don't become a designer or you don't become a web scraping, data fiend. Learning to pick up those new skills as you go, I think, is one of the most important things, because then you can start to string some of them together and it becomes quite exciting.
No, I absolutely love that. And I think obviously, again, this, in today's world, it's really, it's so easy to learn things now, right? Like you can just turn your laptop on, Google search, find a course and, learn something. Whereas, back in my day, not giving away my age, but, like I said, that was not something, if you wanted to learn something new or a new skill, you'd have to potentially move or go to a different part of the country or something. Only a certain place would be doing that. So,
and honestly, I'm now trying to, not every day, but I find that doing a mental weight lift before you start doing before you just, in the default of many people in the business development game, you'd wake up, you get up, you open your email, bang, 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 you reply, you try to push things out. But I find that puts my mind into quite a shallow mental capability gap. There's lot of research. There's this guy called Daniel Kahneman who's written this book about called Thinking Fast and Slow. So the idea is that your brain has two systems. One's called System 1, which basically does quite reflexive tasks that you've got inbuilt habits for. 4 times 4, 16. Whereas to use System 2, which is the heavier lift, your higher brain power kicks in. 45 times 73. You've got to really
you've got a little think.
And actually, you don't do your best work and you don't learn unless you're using System 2. But the way that our brain works is obviously you try and revert to System 1, but it takes about 15 or so minutes to get into that gear, literally going through gears of a car. So I find that in the beginning of the day, I try and do something that forces my brain to get into System 2 and actually doing learning, whether that's about AI or learning some course or whatever, taking notes. That forces my brain into a System 2 territory, so you actually do use the better parts of your brain rather than just reflexively, just passively chasing dopamine, chasing news articles, going on LinkedIn and bash. So, and it forces you to be more strategic in the way that you think about your accounts or the way that you think about your strategy.
Oh, that's amazing. I hadn't heard of it described like that before, but now you've said it, does obviously it does make a lot of sense. But it just sounds like you've got those good sort of routines. I think it's one of those things. I might start looking at it myself. Obviously, I know a lot of people. You can have the best intentions, but we know some days you wake up and you just haven't got the energy. But that is what I think that's brilliant. Bit about that is
over COVID, particularly if you work from home and you're an extroverted person, which I am, and a lot of partnerships people are, then you need to have incredibly strong habits to stay effective and to use your capabilities to the best of their ability, rather than just waiting for emails. And if you have one of those days where nothing really comes in, or you end up just chasing LinkedIn, you end up without really using your brain, and that's one of the most more frustrating problems of the role.
No, I absolutely love that. And just moving on to, again, I mean, we like to ask guests, sometimes, some people may not necessarily have maybe managed teams in their roles, but obviously you all work as part of a wider team. So, it's the same kind of thing. But, do you have any sort of sort of views or ideas on what can, help to make a sort of a high, performing team? So again, it could be someone maybe like you've managed, or, within a team that you're working, because within a business, business you're in is absolutely huge. But the culture, can play a massive part in terms of how, a team works together, and ultimately how a business performs, and actual staff staying on in, the job, and the roles. So, we all want to keep our best people. And the big part of that is obviously having the right, sort of culture and mentality. So, like I said, any sort of views on, your experiences with that?
I'd say I'll say the first thing, which is blindingly obvious and will have been said by many people before, which is that for first-time managers, learning to delegate well and taking the time to learn how to delegate is the most important thing, because you assume someone who's more junior will know what to do, and then you can get annoyed. But actually, it's often your fault that you haven't set the right expectations, timelines, and set out the right understanding of what their hurdles might be. And although it's a lot of investment, and we will naturally think we're good at it because it's very easy to boss people around. Learning to delegate effectively, everyone thinks that they're good at it, and most people are not. I mean, not to say, I'm sure maybe there are some. So that's the first one. But the one that I have found really impactful in the last 2 companies I've been at, which is when you're selling more complex consultancy driven or sales with a reasonably long sales cycle. So the kinds of businesses, kinds of deals we're looking at, kind of 6 to 18 months is that territory, and some of them are pretty high value. When you're doing those kinds of deals, you need to work very closely with a number of people across your organization, technology teams, project teams, often your other salespeople or your other partnerships or BD people. So you often need help from the people in your teams, and consequently, the commission structure has reflected less of a hunter mentality. So whilst you still will be compensated in some shape or form, it's not the same. You don't end up with that aggressive boiler room and hyper protective kind of culture where people won't collaborate with each other on each other's deals, or there's there are disputes over ownership of accounts. Because what I have found incredibly healthy in the last 2 roles I've been in is that people are quite happy to help each other out, share info, share insight, and actually they want their team to get better and they want their team to hit their targets, rather than seeing one of your colleagues hit your target and a little part of you dies. That's not. We've all been there. It's just human nature. That's just the way we're built. And the difference is that you collaborate and you want your colleagues to get better because you want them to help make you better as well. And granted, there'll be some companies where that's not the case. And if you're selling high volume, commoditized, you need to be doing like 30, 40 deals a day, then yes, you're not going to be sharing. Or 30 deals a week or whatever it is. There are some roles where that's not going to happen.
Yeah.
But when you've got that, when it's a much more knowledge work-based sale, then sometimes you will need that. And that has been one of the cultural things that's made a massive difference for me, that you still have the pressure, but it's more of a team pressure, and that is slightly better to bear.
Yeah. Yeah, I love that, and spot on. I think everyone probably has experienced that type of thing where
privately and never said it.
You're smiling, but inside you're not.
Well done, mate. Yeah,
brilliant. And then you're thinking, unbelievable. I think that's really. I mean, my background was in mobile phones before I started getting into the partnerships game, and obviously that's. Especially when it first started, I mean, the sales for it just went, it just blew up incredibly. But I don't even know, I never worked in the sales side myself. I watched and I'd seen like within our contact center and just how people operate, and it was cutthroat. There was no teamwork going on there. It was everyone was basically out for themselves.
100%.
They sold something to the grand to get a sale. So we things have evolved massively. I think I'd probably say since then. But some funny times. Oh, sorry, go on.
No. I'm imagining you. You in the phone shop, but like fighting over customers.
I could quite a few stories we could go into, but we haven't got the time. Haven't got time to get into that now. So just also, I know we obviously touched a little bit on. You talked about personal kind of development you're doing in terms of the AI stuff, which is really interesting. But we always like to just try and ask our guests, what do they think the sort of future holds? I mean, partnerships, just as a piece, I still think is something that a lot of business. I mean, I've come across companies. Some people don't even the term partnerships just there doesn't really exist. In sort of the business. Something that they've potentially looking to bring in, but I think it's a lot more common these days to have a partnerships obviously team. But in terms of what you think the future sort of holds for sort of like creating partnerships, and any sort of views or ideas on how it might sort of change from where it's come today. I mean, I think we could probably look over the last sort of 5 to 10 years at how things have changed, whether it be obviously the tools that we're using. Also, I think AI is probably going to come a little bit, shall we say, more, more involved. We're still at the sort of, infancy of that. But yeah, sort of, any ideas, sort of like, how, you think things might sort of, change in the future when it comes to, essentially just creating partnerships.
So I think it's going to be really fascinating to see how things evolve, because depending on the industry, vertical kinds of products, I think there's going to be a massive transition in the way that partnerships professionals operate. There'll probably be quite a big influx of wannabe thought leaders, because now you can knock out a blog post, you can knock out thought leadership content way faster than you ever were before. Frankly, you barely need to make much effort. I considered doing it that myself, but I thought, let's not be one of those guys yet. But there will probably be some consulting-based industries where that is a way that you need to, in order to stand out and do the social selling piece. I think social selling will continue to grow massively, and I suspect a lot of AI-powered content will be part of that. So that's one part. I think that, and I alluded to this earlier, the area that I like the most is the community-based driven approach, where you're not, and then this is where I think find is quite interesting, is rather than just looking on LinkedIn and trying to find an expert on there, having a small group of people who you trust, or you learn to trust over time, and you have a few events and you start to get to know people, and then you have those recommendations from people who really know what they're talking about in your industry. That's the way that generally you're likely to make the best decisions. So I think finding and identifying those small groups that historically evolved organically, but perhaps can start to evolve a bit more systematically. I think that's a really, really exciting approach. I do also think that there will probably be less of a division within the kinds of businesses, the way you're selling high volume, lower value products. There will probably become more of a merging of sales and marketing, where in order to be competitive in those kinds of spaces, you need to be having less salespeople on the phones or on emails, and actually a lot of it will be able to be automated by AI. So the way that you manage that AI and you tweak it, perhaps your salespeople will start to use those tools, and the people who are the best at using those tools, whether that's tweaking or identifying customer queries at scale, which is somewhere between sales marketing and data analysis. I suspect that there'll be many consumer focused businesses, or even lower value commodity based businesses, where that's going to become the differentiator. And there will always be a place for supper clubs and community events and going to events. So that's never going to be replaced. That's been around since forever. But I think that there will probably be so much more noise as a consequence of AI, both in terms of incoming emails and thought leadership, that I like to think that the personal connection component of a community is going to be one of the things that grows. Maybe that's what I'd like. That's what I'd like to see, rather than just everyone thinking, no, all in on high volume content. Because
no, I love that. I think it's just something I've got going to sort of just a general, you can always do more things with more, people, rather than obviously trying to go load these things on your own. And like you said, this is one of the things we sort of, champion at Finder. We've got, like I said, the members on the platform, everybody's open to having a conversation. Like I said, you're talking to the people who can make the decisions within the business. And like you said, it's just building that bit of a community, so people can help to network and to get them where they're going. So I love that. Okay, we've got time just quickly for one more question. Really enjoyed talking to you so far, and we just do this for a little bit of fun. Again, this could be something for you personally. It doesn't have to necessarily be or it can be within Unity, maybe you're looking. But if you if a business or a specific person that you like, you'd love to have a partnership with, obviously who would it be and why?
So they're obviously within my role, there are a lot of the big companies in the visual effects or the gaming space that would be the immediate box tick.
Obvious answers.
Those are the obvious answers. But the one that's interesting, that's on my mind at the moment, is I've been developing a treatment for a TV show. My sister's a West End composer, and I used to be, as I said, an artist. So it's a sort of musically driven TV show, which is a ridiculously ambitious project for someone who doesn't have any writing credits and doesn't have this kind of experience. But I've been working with AI to build it up into something that's a bit more credible, and actually it does stand up to. And I have had some initial meetings with some of the studios, and so therefore, if I was to and what I guess I'm learning, having spoken to people in the industry, is that it's not just how good your idea is, it's how good you are at selling your idea and how good you are at building connections, getting people talking about your idea and spreading that concept amongst a wide range of stakeholders, which is the same thing as building a partnership with a big company or a series of big companies. So if there's a way for me to leverage my hustling partnership skills to create something where I really have got no business playing, which is in the writing some sort of new TV treatment, it's a incredibly small chance it would go anywhere. But if it were to, and I was able to use my skills, my partnership skills to do that, then of course that would be really exciting. So that would be so Netflix, let's say,
Listen, everyone should dream. But no, listen, I think that's amazing. It's definitely one of the most usual answers we've had, but like I said, I think it's just incredible. Like I said, using the tools that are out there to just help you, just get more, like I said, better, more respects of what you're doing. So you can then become more sort of credible. So we'll do what we can. We'll do a little little shout. You never know. Stranger things have always happened. I've said this many times. So it's all part of that community. We can we'll put a word. You never know. So listen, we've come to the end. Just want to say, big thank you for taking the time to come and talk to us, here at Finder. So, we always appreciate everyone taking the time out of their day, just to come and obviously speak to us and give us their views. And I've thoroughly enjoyed catching up with you. So yeah, again, just thank you very much.
Thanks so much, Carl. It's been great. Fantastic.
Thanks for joining this week's Game Set Matchup. Tune in to hear more about the need to knows and the do's and don'ts when it comes to creating successful business partnerships.